Hi, getting great performance out of your team. It's a magical moment when it happens. What do you need to do? There's one single thing that is time and again shown to be the most motivating, the thing that most gets high performance out of a team. Let's talk about what that is and how to do it. And then also let's talk about those moments when perhaps you're not getting perfect performance or great performance. How do you give the sort of feedback that actually gets people to change and develop? So let's go back to that one thing. What is the one thing, not that just gets adequate performance, but what is the one thing that motivates people to do better, to perform really well? Time and again, study after study shows it's not money, it's not how cool is your office you work in, it's recognition. Recognition, praise, and so on. Now, it seems a simple thing. Recognition obviously can take lots of different forms. It can simply be walking through the office, tapping someone on the shoulder and saying, thanks, that was great what you did today. It can be one of my favorites. It can be that text message you send to a staff member at 7 p.m. They're at home and they receive a message from the boss that says something like, hey, John, I saw the work you did yesterday. That's absolutely brilliant. Just the sort of thing we're looking for. For others, they like to receive their recognition publicly. They like the idea of being on stage. They like a bit of, so call them out in front of the team. So giving recognition, giving that positive feedback, that reinforcement feedback frequently and often. In fact, my first boss, he taught me, he said, Andrew, try to catch someone out doing the right thing every day. Someone on your team every day. And there have been periods, I've had clients use this. They'll have at 5 p.m, they'll have a little pop-up in their reminder pop-up that says, hey, anyone I can give feedback to? Stop and think for a moment, what did I see today? Where did I see some good work today? That positive feedback. So feedback, positive feedback, frequent, positive, of course, and give it in different ways. Whether that is the tap on the shoulder, whether it's the public feedback, whether it's the text message, whether it's a Friday afternoon award at the pub, whether it's the annual award for start. There are so many different ways you can do it. Positive recognition. It's the single greatest motivator in most cases of high performance. Now, unfortunately, you're not always going to get high performance. Sometimes you're going to have to give feedback. You're going to hope, you're going to want a team member to do better, to maybe change the way they're going about something. And you're going to need to give them feedback. Now, I'll give you a couple of tips, the basic tips on sort of the key principles of giving feedback. And then I've got a particular formula, a particular technique that is very, very effective in then actually delivering the feedback. So the key principles, which I think most of us would be aware of, feedback given well is feedback given soon. Immediacy is really important. If the only feedback you're giving is an annual review, an annual performance review, and you're talking about something that happened, 8 months ago, it's going to be hard for that to have any resonance, any relevance at all. So if you see somebody doing something positive or negative, give the feedback then. Give the feedback that night. Give it that day, that week at latest. So that also means, it's the second principle, as specifically as possible. Not general, vague, I like working with you. Give it more like, I really like the way you ask me great questions that helps me to do better. Keep doing more of that, please. Specific, which then becomes actionable. It's feedback which isn't just vague and bland and nonsense. It's something that person can actually do something with, can actually get some benefit from, can improve from, or if it's positive feedback, can focus and ensure they do more of it, double down on it. So those are just basic principles around feedback. The technique I'm going to give you is all about when you want somebody to make a change. This is the harder feedback often. It's fairly easy to give the feedback, but to actually get a change is difficult, it seems. So I'm going to recommend you need to ask them questions. In particular, I emphasize that. It's like kids. Any of you that have kids, ask yourselves the question, how much do they like being told what to do? If they're teenage kids, I ask the question even more strongly. I've got a teenager, so how much do they like being told what to do? Not at all. Asking questions, on the other hand, forces them to actually think about it, work it out for themselves, and sometimes even my 15-year-old teenager will actually do the right thing. No, he's a good kid, does the right thing a lot. But same applies. So asking questions, and in particular, 3 questions. Now, you might end up asking slightly differently worded questions, maybe a few more to bring it all out. That's fine, but you'll understand the logic flow that comes from these 3 questions. And if you want somebody to actually change, it is necessary that they go through 3 steps of logic in their mind. So the first question is some version of what it is you've been doing. What just happened? What did you do? How did you do it? Some version of that, which is all about them recognizing in their own mind, not just you telling them recognizing in their own mind and acknowledging what it is they did. I've been doing it this way, which might not be the right way. I've been ignoring the process. I haven't been dealing with people well like this. Whatever is the behavior or the activity that you're talking about, you need to start by getting them to acknowledge that's what I've been doing, the thing that isn't quite right. Second question, what's the impact of that? This is all about helping them to recognize the full impact of what they're doing. Now, sometimes you'll ask a few questions. What's the impact on your teammates? What's the impact on our customers? What's the impact on me, your boss? What's the impact on the business? What's the impact on your future promotion? It can have lots of impacts, but getting them to think more deeply so that they fully recognize how important this is, what we're talking about. They fully realize the need, the why do I need to change? And then the third question is the obvious one. Great, what are you going to do differently in future? And again, it's all about them working it out, them coming up with it, which of course increases the chances of them owning it and actually doing it. Now, funnily enough, with positive feedback, it's the same formula. What have you been doing? What's the impact? And now starting to recognize the impact's really positive. But instead of what are you going to do differently, it's how can we do more of that? How can you help the other guys do that? How can you teach the team to do that? And so on. Same logic flow. The critical piece is getting them to acknowledge what it is they've been doing, getting them to recognize the full impact of that, and getting them to come up with the solution, with the better course of action. Now, if you're giving feedback frequently, if you're giving majority positive feedback, assuming there's positive feedback to give, if you're giving good, clear, specific feedback, and when you require a change from people, if you're giving it in a way that genuinely enables them to make the change, you're going to see a very high-performing team. And seeing a high-performing team, having a high-performing team in your business is one of the great moments in business. So get out there, give the feedback well, enjoy it. All the best.